it was the very first time that I honored, I'm going to listen to my body. And what's the worst that can happen? Mindful eating is really, again, about that purposeful, conscious, intentional eating and reconnecting to your body. It's the way that you talk to yourself. It's the story that you tell yourself. It's the belief, it's the interpretation that has become your perception, which has become your reality. All you need is your body, and all you need is to listen to it.
Hi, Envisionaires. Welcome to the Envisionaire podcast. This is the podcast where we envision living our best lives by exploring everyday topics related to health, wealth, and community. On today's episode, we have Jackie Kirschen, registered dietitian, nutritionist, and founder of Eat Right for Life. Her 65-pound weight loss journey started after she faced a scary prediabetes diagnosis in university, having a BMI considered morbidly obese. Following this diagnosis, she reevaluated the way she nourished her body from a physical and mental perspective. And after working with a nutritionist and making regular, small, healthy changes over a year and a half, she successfully lost 65 pounds and has kept off the weight since. Despite reaching her goal weight on the scale, her journey did not stop there. Rather, this spurred on her passion to learn everything she could about nutritional science and understanding the healing properties that food and nutrition can offer the human body. She subsequently qualified as a registered dietitian, obtained a master's degree in nutritional science, and published several articles in peer-reviewed journals on the topic of childhood obesity and body weight perception. With her company, Eat Right for Life, Jackie regularly coaches clients one-on-one and leads group-based nutrition programs to help others on their health and wellness journey. She's often referred to as the mindful nutritionist on social media, where she shares practical nutritional advice with many of her followers, including healthy food and drink swaps, which I myself have followed. So thank you, Jackie, for the pumpkin spice latte swap. I absolutely love that from Starbucks. So very good advice. So as many of us are reflecting and resetting our eating habits in the new year, I'm so pleased that we have Jackie on the Envisionaire podcast to share her framework on mindful eating and nutrition and how we can start implementing a healthier and happier lifestyle when it comes to our relationship with food and eating. So, Jackie, a very warm welcome to the Envisionaire podcast.
Thank you. I need to bring you with me and just put you in a little container and have you introduce me everywhere I go. That was awesome.
Oh, I'm glad. No. I mean, you have such an impressive background. It was really interesting to read all about it.
Thank you.
So, Jackie, we normally have guests give us their origin story. And so it would be really helpful for you to share with the listeners where you grew up and your childhood in general, and also to understand your journey with regards to weight and your relationship with food.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am born and raised in San Diego, which is a shocker to people because they're usually transplants. So the fact that I was born and raised and still live here, I am SoCal through and through. My family is actually from South Africa. So I am the black sheep in the family without a South African accent. I can put on a very good impersonation of my mom. I grew up here in the Jewish community here in San Diego. And I wanted to really kind of break free when I was applying to colleges because it's just a very tight-knit community, especially growing up in a South African Jewish household. It was very proper and by the books. And I think that was kind of my rebellion. And I was like, I'm going to go to Emory in Atlanta. And my parents were like, what? And so the only reason why I was able to go there is because it was a 40% Jewish population. So that's the only way I was able to get out of California.
Okay.
I think that it was the most transformative few years of my life because not only did I hit my rock bottom, but it also started my career in a sense. So I went to study to become a doctor. Who doesn't? As coming up from a Jew, right? Lawyer, Jewish, like or doctor. So I was planning on taking over my dad's practice one day. And after I went through organic chemistry, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. But also, I was just literally eating, sleeping, studying, repeating. And it was just, I never knew how to nourish my body. My parents, again, as I mentioned, came from South Africa. And I think coming to America, everything was fast food, right? It was McDonald's and drive through and this and that. So I grew up, I love my mother, if she's probably maybe listening, I don't know, but used to take
Yeah.
me through like Carl's Jr. for a snack after school, right? Or getting
Yeah.
12 mini donuts, like the donut holes, or like tons of sushi. And just like I grew up on fast food. And not that my parents did anything on purpose, but it was easy and convenient for them. As they came from South Africa to America, it just was kind of the norm. So I grew up eating a whole thing of Chipotle at the age of like 12, 13, 14, 15. So
Yeah.
when I went to college and when it was like a free for all, it was just buffet. I was in the South. You can only imagine. So my weight skyrocketed. I was always cute, chubby little Jackie, but when I went to Emory, that's when I really packed on the pounds. And so I
Mm.
came home for my first year, I guess into my sophomore year. So after my freshman year,
Yeah.
and I got just like my routine checkup, and I was diagnosed with prediabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Essentially, my doctor called me and said, I know you're in college, but like, how many drinks are you having? And I didn't drink much. And that's how unhealthy my liver was. It looked like an
Wow.
alcoholic. That was like the biggest eye opener. So as I was growing up, my parents, I was, again, like I said, cute, chubby little Jackie, but it wasn't, and they wanted me to lose weight. And that's a whole nother story. But it wasn't until
Mm.
I was the one that decided, like, oh my goodness, that like scare, like that fear of disease is what was like, okay,
Yes.
this is what I'm doing. So as you mentioned, I started working with a nutritionist, and all throughout my sophomore year at Emory,
Mm-hmm.
I was able to lose, so probably I would say about 40 pounds my sophomore year. And then into my summer and the other half of the year, I lost the extra weight for a total of about 65 pounds and have kept it off since. And then that goes into another, but it really sparked my love for nutrition and watching my body change and watching the way
Mm-hmm.
I got, into fitness and running and things like that. And the way that, like, I'm such a science nerd. So I was testing certain things with my performance and running. And it was so
Yeah.
incredible to watch how my food directly impacted my performance or the way I felt or that I slept or my energy. And so that's when I said, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
dad, I'm not going to be a doctor anymore. And I decided my senior year that I was going to become a dietitian. So I essentially started from scratch and I got my
Wow.
master's here. I came back home to SDSU. I did a lot of research. When you mentioned like, publications, that was really important to me, and I was able to get accepted into like my residency here at the VA in San Diego, which is a super competitive and crazy intense program, probably the worst year of my life, but so important because, again, I was able to really see what I could do nutritionally, especially for the veterans that I was working with. And then I got into bariatrics as my first job because I was always very passionate, of course, about weight loss because of my own journey. And
Mm-hmm.
once the pandemic hit, I was just exhausted. I was seeing 16 patients a day. It was all telehealth, and the world had shut down, and I was the only one who was actually working because surgeries weren't happening anymore. So I was just being
Mm-hmm.
pumped with patients because I was the only one making money for the practice. And that's when I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to start my own private practice. And I saw everyone going online. I was like, okay, I guess this is it. Like, I was going to have a brick and mortar and like do, what typical, in person practitioners do. And then I was like, guess we're shifting. So that's how Eat Right for Life was born and slowly
Wow.
evolved into the mindful nutritionist. It's totally different from when I started back in September 2020, but I wouldn't change it for anything. So the ups and downs and everything that I went through, from weight loss and eating disorder and all of the in between, have been really the things that have shaped me to get my clients and support them in the best way that I can.
Wow. I mean, okay, well, what an incredible story. Let's say that. I mean, to be able to use what was a challenge and turning it into an opportunity, which is an ethos. It's the ethos of the podcast. So that is amazing. There's a lot of stuff that I thought was really interesting in what you said. So let's kind of go back to parts of this, of your journey. You mentioned the articles that you published. Now, I know that they talked about childhood obesity and also body perception, body weight perception. Is there a reason that that's what you focused on? Is it because of your own experiences there, or was it the eating disorder that I believe you developed afterwards?
Yeah. Yeah, wow, I just got the chills because it's like I haven't really thought back to those days, and they were so imperative because not only was I studying to become a dietitian, but I felt like such a fraud because I was struggling with my own weight and my own body. And I was just like, I can't believe I'm about to, like, become an expert in this, and I still haven't figured it out for myself. So when I started my research, and I actually worked at Rady's Children's Hospital here in San Diego for about 9 years. And I started out as an
Mhm.
intern. My first project was called Rethink Your Drink. So it's kind of like the stoplight effect of teaching people how to look at, like, sugary sweetened beverages. Hence why you see the Starbucks swaps, because it's like that's what I taught people, like how to make modified choices and how to reduce their sugar. And then I
Right.
started going into the community and teaching, these communities. And I saw a lot of children who were not only struggling just like economically, it's hard to provide for bigger families and they couldn't afford quote unquote healthy food. And
Hmm.
McDonald's menu, the $1 menu, was something that they could afford. And then I also saw this other aspect of so many girls, and this is something so prevalent, which I'm super passionate about and hopefully putting out a new program soon, is when I was a teenager, from the age of like 12 to, again, like when I was diagnosed 19, I always saw myself bigger. I always struggled with my body. And, I am seeing girls today who are seeing what societal norms are on TikTok and social media and Instagram. And it just pains me. One of my clients even said to me, her daughter came home from school and she didn't eat her lunch. And her mom asked her why. And she said, well, we kind of have a competition of who can eat the least amount at their lunch. And it is heartbreaking. Hence
It's
why
heartbreaking.
I'm working to hopefully create a program. I know it's an uphill battle I'm going to have to climb, but I think it's so necessary because, when I was that age, it was the same thing. I was always comparing myself to other people's bodies. And it was always like, well, she can eat that. So why can't I? And I don't look that way. And I have a client right now who's a junior in high school who that just came up on a session with her, and she just went kind of like quiet, and I could see she was holding back the tears. And it was the first time that I think anyone had ever opened up that line of communication with her. And she just, like, it took her a while to answer me. And she's like, I've never talked about this with anyone before. And I'm like, I've
Oh.
been there. So body weight perception it was hard because I was struggling with my own perception of my body, but the
Hmm.
results were just, I mean, it was so sad and so incredible that there were so many young teens who saw themselves heavier, or lack of a better term, fatter, right? And
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
did not match their BMI. So when I did this research, I saw that our perception of our bodies is completely
Yeah.
inaccurate. And now that I practice mindful eating, and now that I am an expert and healed in this is something that I know stems from the mind, and it stems from the thoughts and the beliefs and the stories we tell ourselves. It's the
Hmm.
interpretation. So when I explain
Hmm.
it to my clients, it's like, okay, well, you're looking through these, like, rosy colored glasses that just have fog over them. And it's like, let's clean them. Let's put on your regular glass. It's just like perception's reality for these kids.
Yes.
So it was
Yes.
really
Yes. Yes.
alarming to
Yes.
see that. I mean, at the time, and even now today, obesity is a very scary thing and a very big thing. So there are definitely
Hmm.
kids who on quote unquote, the BMI charts are categorized as obese, which I know since the AMA came out in June with more of how we're using BMI and it's less of, something that we're looking at. But it came from both aspects, that there were some kids who were heavier, who did not think that they had
Mm-hmm.
an issue. Hi, me, when I was growing up. And then there was the other side of girls who called themselves fat, called themselves obese when they had a
Yeah.
healthy BMI. Hi, me, eating disorder. So it was like, oh my God, like we can
Mm-hmm.
fluidly move. It's like the pendulum from one side to the other. How
Mm-hmm.
can we get our children and even us as young adults today to really see ourselves for what we truly are, the facts of it? And it
Mm-hmm.
really can, I mean, again, lack of a better term, weigh someone down emotionally, right? Because you see, so I always give this example, and I'm sure your listeners have, felt this way. Like, think of a time when you looked at yourself in a picture and you were like, oh, I look so gross. I'm so fat. And then a few years later go by and you look at yourself as like, I don't know if I can curse on here, so I probably won't curse, but I was like, why the hell did I think that I was heavy then? I look freaking amazing. Like, I look so sexy.
Yeah.
And I know every single woman listening to this podcast is like, yep, I have definitely, and we're all guilty of it, but it's like,
Same.
so exactly, you too. So it's like, ask yourself, like, why? Why was I so hard
Mm.
on myself then? And now that I look back, I'm like, dang, I look so freaking good. Why was I so hard on myself? I wish I looked like then. So
Yes.
again, this
Yes.
is why mindful eating has been so powerful and important to me, because mindful, it literally comes,
Yes.
it's not something that's wrong with your eyes, guys. Let's get that clear, right? You don't need different,
Mm-hmm.
actual glasses, actual content or contacts. It's the way that you talk to yourself. It's the story that you tell yourself. It's the belief, it's the
Yes.
interpretation that has
Yes.
become your perception, which has become your reality.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Well, we're definitely going to get into the mindful eating for sure. So that's going to be we'll dive into that a bit more at that time. When you talked about the changes that you made, I know you were working with a nutritionist. That's helpful, presumably. But what were some of the changes, the small changes that you did? So you mentioned like running and kind of testing your body with food and seeing what was happening. Were there any other concrete steps that you took?
Yeah, so honestly, the first one was mindful eating, which I can touch on because it literally was like the biggest eye opener. So I started
Mm.
tracking. I will say accountability is key, hence why I started working with a nutritionist and I saw her once a week, hence why I have a program and I have over 100 women in my program. Accountability community is so important. So if you don't
Okay.
have that, that is number one. Going through weight loss alone is very hard, especially when you don't know what direction, what to do. So that was like number one, the biggest change that I needed is someone who was not my parents to tell me lose weight. It was someone who, came from an approach of like, how can I support you? So the first thing that I started doing, of course, was changing what type of food I was eating. So that's when I teach my clients today a balanced approach when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to their meals. So instead of like the my plate and counting calories and things like that, I teach an approach of protein, fiber, healthy fat. So those are the things that we want to add more of. I didn't want to feel deprived. I already was making a big shift. I kind of went cold turkey, right? I was eating like Carl's Jr. and donuts and stuff to not. So that was like kind of cold turkey. So I said to myself, how can I add nutrition? And that's what I practice today and teach. So
Mm.
how could I add protein? How could I add fiber? How could I add healthy fat? I knew that those things would help keep me full. I knew that they would give me energy. I knew that they would keep my blood sugar stable. I knew that they would support, whether it was my metabolism or just my weight loss goals. So that was the biggest
Yeah.
thing. Number one is I focused my nutrition. I honed that in on protein, fiber,
Mm-hmm.
healthy fat. And again, every single person is different. I noticed for myself and my body, I am a volume eater. So everyone always looks at my plate. They're like, where do you put it all? I was like, I don't know. Go straight to my ass. Who knows? But it goes somewhere. So I love volume. So what I had to do was like, okay, how could I get volume, but also have healthier, lower calorie options? So lots of fruits and veggies were staples for me. So
Mm-hmm.
lots of salads and lots of, again, colors. And I had to have a good dose of protein, Greek yogurt, chicken, fish, always the center of my meal. And then in order to
Yeah.
keep me feeling satisfied, because who feels satisfied eating a piece of, bland chicken breast and broccoli? I needed some fat, right? And I knew as I was studying nutrition, fat soluble
Mm-hmm.
vitamins and absorption. So I always focused on more Mediterranean aspects of like, avocado and nuts and seeds and olive oil. So I really had an approach of how can I add? How can I add nutrition
Mm.
instead of taking things away, right? So if I wanted the donut, or for
Yeah.
example, like if I wanted the ice cream, I would say, okay, I'm going to go get froyo. That's literally how I
Mm.
started. Instead of the Ben and Jerry's, I would be like, Mom, can we go get froyo instead? Because it was still what I wanted, but a lower sugar, lower calorie option. Then, of course, I got into like making my own stuff. So that was the first step.
Yeah.
Number two, when it came to portions, and this was kind of on accident, and I'm so glad because it saved my life. And now I teach mindful eating. I'll never forget. I always tell the story. I was a camp counselor when I started my weight loss journey at the JCC here in San Diego. And I had, my 30, 6 to 8 year olds who were going crazy, whatever. And I was eating my lunch and I had my like super healthy, like my wrap with salmon and then like veggies and hummus and all my berries. And I had this like literally like massive, beautiful, healthy lunch. And I remember
Yeah.
getting halfway through my wrap. And I remember I just felt this feeling of like, stop, like content, like I'm good. And it was the very first time that I was like, this is interesting. What do I do? And I was like, literally, this like internal battle. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, but I have so much food. Oh my God, I don't want to waste the food. And again, coming on from a Jewish family, it's like, are you hungry? No. Here's a sandwich. It's like, oh, everything was food, right? Don't get up from the table until you're done eating. And like, you can't have dessert till your broccoli's done. Like, again, it all starts with good intentions, but we have been
Mm-hmm.
told, like, clean your plate. So I remember having this like literally in my head, like ping pong back and forth. Like, what do I do? What do I do? Like, do I stop? But I have so much food, but I want to eat the food, but it's good. But I feel fine. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to listen. And it was the very first time that I like honored, I'm going to listen to my body. And what's the worst that can happen? If I'm hungry in half an hour, I finish the wrap. It's only
Yeah.
12
Yeah. Yeah.
o'clock,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
it was funny because
Yeah.
it's such a small, like probably people are like, that's so weird, but it was such a pivotal moment in my journey. And I
Yeah.
remember then it was like 4 o'clock and, we had snack, the kids were going home and I was gonna
Yes.
go work out. I'm like, oh my God, I ate half of my lunch and like I didn't die. I like still am
Right.
standing. Like I still have energy. Then I
Yes.
had my snack. And guess what? I had lunch for the next day. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this again. And every single day from there on out, I'm not perfect. So I will tell you
Mm.
guys, there are times that I do overeat. It's very normal. But
Mm-hmm.
ever since that
Yeah.
day, I said, I'm going to listen to my body and stop when I'm satisfied. And that's been my slogan now. Eat until you're satisfied, eat all the foods you love while still losing weight, eating to the point of
Mm-hmm.
satisfaction. And the weight just started coming off and coming off and coming off. So, like, nutrition 101, right? Listening to my portions. And then,
Yeah.
of course, you hit plateaus. It's very normal. And that's where I started experimenting when I got into running. And then I started experimenting of what food supported. And I got into races and things like that. So that's kind of boring
Wow.
stuff. But I will say, I really started, I was going on the elliptical, which is like to me, no offense to people who like the elliptical, is like the fakest workout ever because you're like drenched in sweat and it tells you you burned X amount of calories. And it's like, no, I didn't even put the resistance on. So when I hit my first few plateaus, that's when I started getting into. So it really, I want people to know when you get and start into weight loss, like it doesn't need to be like, oh, I need to go to the gym for an hour. I need to do all these things. Like start with the basics. Start with what you're putting in
Yeah.
your body, how much you're putting in your body, and what you can be consistent with. I was consistent with going to
Mm.
the gym for an hour, going on the elliptical, and that's what I could handle. And then as the
Mm-hmm.
years progressed, sure, then I got into running and racing and all of that kind of stuff. Now I'm 2 years postpartum.
Yeah.
Don't plan on running a half marathon anytime soon, but I can if I wanted to. Like it's still within me because I've built up this like endurance. But
Yes.
I think it's so sad when I see people starting their weight loss journey that they go straight to like, for example, right now at the time of this recording, like keto is really big. We're intermittent fasting
Mm.
or, Whole30 or cutting out or only eating meat and not eating any plant-based, or only eating plant-based and not eating any meat. And like anytime you see that where it's like this or that, all or nothing, good or bad, don't do it.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Well, I've kind of got up and down with my weight my whole life as well. So definitely a lot of the story that you shared definitely resonated with me, and I'm sure it resonates with a lot of listeners. It's just the society we live in, not only with I think the fact that we're living in this world where like fast food and comfort eating and emotional eating and everything, these are challenges that we all face. So but I definitely think that when I've been my healthiest, it was because I was taking care of myself by adhering to the principles that you mentioned, like kind of, I was never fully cutting things out, but I was like being very mindful of what I was eating, and obviously like led by more like, the healthy, just the things that we know are healthy: fruit, vegetable, and protein. And then working out, but finding things that I loved doing, like that it wasn't a workout, like
Yeah.
spinning and, going tennis and whatever. So yeah, no, it all makes sense, and it's all very logical. So I guess what I wanted to ask you again, because you mentioned a few things. So the portion thing was a very interesting one, because that is something, as a North American and a North American living in Europe, I feel like that was probably the biggest change when I moved here 10 years ago. It was like,
Yeah.
portions are so small.
Yep.
You go out to like a restaurant, it's like half the size of a normal portion. I was actually listening to something today, and on mindful eating, and there was a woman who said that our taste buds are meant to experience food like with great joy and flavor the first like few bites, and then actually it subsides, because I think it's meant, that's all, like you don't really need to continue to eat. Have you heard that before?
Well, yeah. So when you think about, and I guess this is not a great example, but I'll use it because it applies. So have you
Yeah.
ever heard when people are like, "Oh yeah, take 3 bites of cake," right? Like, think of like your women when they're on diets. Like they take the first bite, which is like, "Oh my god," like orgasmic, like this is so good, and then the second one, like, "Yes, keep going," and the third one's like, "Okay, like I'm kind of used to it." And that's how people would always be
Yeah.
like, have 3 bites, and so you can stay in a calorie deficit and you can get that. So I will say that again, it's kind of like, it's that what's the, like you build up this tolerance, like you build up this threshold. It's like, I think anyone can think of a time when they had something where it was super decadent and super creamy or delicious, and like of course those first few bites are like, oh my god, what is this? And then you get used to it, like you get used to it,
Yeah.
right? And so I will say when it comes to mindful eating, that we really want to approach nourishment as like, I'm so grateful for this food. Where did this food come, and like how did it get to me, and what's it going to do for my body? And that's a lot
Yeah.
what I teach. But also, yeah, we aren't meant to have like you said, the it's like the French paradox, right? How are they so thin when they smoke and just eat bread and cheese all day? And it's because portions, right? Because, and lifestyle, they're walking everywhere, and it's a completely different lifestyle. It's
Yeah.
conviviality, they're together with
Yes.
their meal. So the best example, a part of my weight loss journey, is when it was the tail end of my weight loss journey. I lost an extra 10 pounds, not on purpose. I was studying abroad in Italy. So I was there for 4 months, and all of my friends, of course, came back and gained 10 pounds. And here I came back and I lost 10 pounds. And
Wow.
why? Because I lived with a host family. So shout out to Vittoria and Alessio who took care of me. But every single meal was homemade, cooked with love and from scratch and flavor. And you would look at them, and again, it's the same thing with the Italians. They eat literally pasta and bread all day, and they're so healthy. So I was eating such delicious, good quality food. I was walking
Mm.
to and from the center. So I was studying at Syracuse and Florence, and our house was by the stadium, which is 40 minutes outside. So I was walking back and forth, back and forth, back. So doing a ton of walking, and
Yes.
just living, right? I wasn't sitting in the house like, FaceTiming my
Yes.
my boyfriend at the time. Like I was out and about and doing things. And so I came back after 4 months, and like Guys, that's 5 pounds a month, 10 pounds total. That is
Wow.
like, yeah, or
Wow.
well, not 5 pounds a month. That's 2.5 pounds a month, but like it's stuck, right? It's an extra 10 pounds. And it was again because of, I think, the combination of the quality of food, the
Mm-hmm.
portions that we were eating
Mm-hmm.
to, because it was such good quality, because I was so satisfied. And also, my life didn't revolve around food, right? Food fit into my
Yeah.
life, right? But
Yeah.
right now, I think in North America, as you mentioned, we live to eat instead of eating to
Yes.
live. And that's where the Europeans are
Yes.
different. And again, coming up from like a Jewish family, like when we're happy, when we're sad, we sell like everything. We do everything with food. And food has that emotional connection, and that is okay. That is
Mm.
totally okay to have. For example, at the time of this recording, it is, the Christmas time and, all of the holidays and this, like, it's okay. So I'm talking about this with my clients. It's okay to want to enjoy those things. But like you said, having those first few bites and you will feel satisfied, but you have to trust and allow yourself that you can get to that point.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that's a great segue into actual mindful eating. So if we can now, let's talk about it. I think we've understood that the way you explained it very helpfully about your own journey and when you started, you explained steps that you took and a different sort of like a three-prong approach to it. But is it like a universal framework within the community that you work in the industry that it's just like a framework? Is it the same principles that everyone uses, or is it more specific for each dietitian, registered dietitian?
Yeah, so
How
mindful
does that work?
eating is a practice, and mindful eating technically um, is not made for weight loss. So I have taken a completely different spin and used it as my tool in my toolbox to support me with weight loss. So when you look up mindful
Mm-hmm.
eating, you won't see mindful eating for weight loss, but you will when you see my stuff. And that's because of just the outcomes, right? How it really helped me and how it helps my clients.
Yes.
Mindful eating usually gets mixed up with intuitive eating, and they are different. Where intuitive eating is, again, really healing your relationship with food and overcoming disordered eating, things like that, but no weight focus. Where mindful eating is really, again, about that purposeful, conscious, intentional eating and
Mm.
reconnecting to your body. And so, of course, when you practice those principles, you might lose weight because you're being intentional, you're being mindful, you're being, again, conscious about what you're putting in. So I found that using mindful eating principles to support sustainable weight loss is the only way, and I will fight
Mm.
whoever disagrees with me, is the only way you can lose weight while eating the foods you love at any point in your life. You can practice it when you're 12. You can practice it when you're 70. You can practice it here in San Diego, in Europe. You can practice it on vacation, not on vacation. And all you need is your body. And all you need is to
Mm.
listen to it. So there's principles that I teach of, like, again, mindful swaps. And it's not about necessarily always the low calorie, but overall, how, like, for example, you brought up the Starbucks. Not only lower calorie, lower saturated fat, lower sugar, maybe higher protein, maybe higher fiber. So I'm always teaching people, again, how can you make a holistically healthier, more mindful choice? It's not that you cut it out and say, sorry, too bad, Nicole,
Mhm.
no pumpkin spice latte for you. No. And it's funny
Mhm.
that you
Mhm.
mentioned that, because that was my staple. I would have a grande pumpkin spice latte every single day for literally all of fall. And I had no idea that I was having over 50 grams of sugar and hundreds of calories before 8 a.m. Right? Like,
Right.
I had no idea. It just was not something that I thought to look up. And then obviously when
Mhm.
I got into dietetics and started really thinking about, of course, when fall came around and I'm like, what? That's crazy. Like, they're literally killing this world. How are they? I don't know how they are still in business, but again, they
Yeah.
have good
Yeah.
healthier options, and there are ways to reduce from
Yes.
4 pumps to two,
Yes.
or one
Yes.
with a sugar-free option. So that's a lot of noise
Yes.
that I have to fight on the internet as well, when there's a lot of sugar-free options. And it's, again, coming from like a bariatric background too, a lot of these things, that diet this or low sugar this, are helpful when it comes to weight loss. But yes, am I going to go tell my clients, please, everyone drink Diet Coke? Like, no, it's not something that I promote, but I'd rather have you have a Diet Coke over regular Coke. And now people
Yes.
are getting
Yeah.
into like ingredients and this and that. And people just need to, not read the headlines. They need to read the actual research. And the research shows that it's actually better for us so it doesn't spike our blood sugar and, promote more fat storage, and it's less calories and it's less sugar. And again, everything in moderation.
So you mean, sorry, Diet Coke is better, you're saying?
So
Is that what you were
and
saying?
again, this is I have probably some people will comment on your thing being
No,
like,
no, it's
"What's she
okay.
talking about? Regular Coke with." So again, like this is where you got very controversial answers, and I
Yeah.
respect everyone's side. But yes,
Yeah.
I would say if someone were coming to me for weight loss, the
Yeah.
the better, more mindful option would be a lower sugar, lower calorie option, which would be a Diet Coke.
Yeah.
Am I promoting
Yeah.
putting that into our body? No. But
Mhm.
if you want to have enjoy your Diet Coke here and there, by all means, you girl, you do
Yeah.
you. So
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
funny when people see me and they're like, "How are you a dietitian? You're promoting a packaged food or you're promoting this." And I'm like, because I'm a mom and I live in America and I run a business and I'm a wife and like I don't have time I don't live
Yeah.
on a farm where I can farm my own food and always go
Yes.
to an organic farmer's market. Like, yeah, I'm going to promote a ready-made option from Trader Joe's cuz it's going to make your life easier. So,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like with mindful eating there's an element of giving yourself grace as well, based
hugely.
on what you just said, especially for the moms listening who are trying to do everything. And you know, I, I'm not a mom yet, but I feel like when I speak to my friends who are moms, especially with the first one, they're always like, "Oh no, I'm gonna make the food from scratch from the beginning," and it does, and it goes well. And some people continue with the whole life, which is amazing. But when I also hear after about a year or two, and then people start going back to work and this and that, and then all of a sudden there's like this very hard frustration and being really hard on themselves for not being able to like meet those expectations, which were already unreasonable to begin with, right? And so I like the idea of kind of giving yourself grace
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
choosing options that might be readily available and may just have to be, accepted for now, when you need it. So yeah,
Yeah, I
makes
always
sense.
talk about it's so funny because when I had Olivia, and it's funny because I'm a dietitian, right? My whole job is like surrounded by food. So you would think I would enjoy the newborn and food stages. And I was like, what do I do to feed this child? But I've been having so much fun with it because I approach it the same way. So actually on like my Instagram stories, I post pretty much every night, or if not every few nights, like what I pack for Olivia to give people inspiration and they're like, wow, that's so simple. Or like, what? You give that to her? I'm like, yeah, she eats a bagel with cream cheese. And like, yeah, she eats, freeze dried this. Or yeah, she loves avocado and loves olives and loves corn. Like, this girl eats everything because I have taught her that all foods fit and that she can
Hmm.
have. And I love when I get either an empty lunchbox or a lunchbox that is 3/4 of the way full, because
Hmm.
when she gives me her plate with 2 bites left of French toast, I'm like, I never had that. I
Yes.
never, ever, ever as a child. No, it was finish your plate. Don't waste your food. You can't get up until you finish and all of that kind of stuff. So I lost connection to that. So when my mom got me 12 donut holes or got me an entire Chipotle burrito or got me a Carl's Jr. chicken char broiled chicken sandwich, whatever it was, I ate the whole thing because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
when I thought I was done when it was gone. And
Yeah.
it has been my mission to instill in
Yes.
Olivia that she is her own barometer. Like, she
Hmm.
knows when she's done. So it's so crazy. It's still every time it just like it's mind blowing. Like, I brought up that French toast because I was trying out a new recipe and I gave it to her and I like literally 2 bites, 2 bites, Nicole, 2 bites. I was like, Jackie, don't say it, don't, because a part of me was like, do you want to finish it? Do you want more? And like kind of do what my mom did to me. And
Yes.
again, from love, total from
Yes.
love, but
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just again stemmed and turned into me not knowing what my internal satisfaction cues. That's what I talk about all the time. And I
Mm.
was also just like so proud. And she was like, no, all done. Can I go play? And even with a cookie, right? Or, so, this morning she wanted a cookie for breakfast, and I had to be like, Olivia, we'll have a cookie after today, with your dinner. Again, it's not like a treat, like after, it's a part of her dinner. And sometimes she
Mhm.
doesn't. Sometimes this girl eats leftover ribs. Sometimes she eats chicken nuggets. Sometimes she eats salmon. Like, it's just,
Yes.
and that's what we're not brought up with, right? It's either a salad we're losing weight, or it's pizza when we're gaining weight. And there's no, just food has no moral value. So yeah, mindful eating, when you said like giving yourself grace, like
Yes.
that is something, especially as a new mom. My best friend was like, bought that whole like thing where she like makes her own purees and all that stuff. I was like, F that. I am like, I am ready made. So I would obviously make things and like, blend it up or whatever. But I'm sorry. Like, I give Olivia like the pouches because she loves them and they're convenient and they're easy. And then I see these influencers that are like, oh my God, these are so bad. They have 9 grams of sugar. And I'm like, screw you. You don't have children, number one. Number two, like the Once Upon a Farm pouches. They have no added sugar. They're literally made from wholesome fruits and veggies. 9 grams of sugar is not going to kill, like, your brain needs glucose to function. So I get very fired up when there are people out there being like, how dare you give your children, these 9 grams in these pouches? And I'm like, again, wait till you have a child. And also, it is like made from real fruits and veggies. If this is a way that I can have my daughter get some nutrition in the morning and it makes my life easy and she enjoys it and it's good for her body, you bet I'm giving it to her.
Love that. Do you know what? I feel like we need to have you on and we need to talk about it like parent child. We need to focus on like the mindful eating for children, because I think this is probably such a hot topic that
Yeah.
and you have so much wisdom to impart. So I love it. I love
Thank you. Yeah. Part two coming soon.
it. Part two. Okay, so getting back to the mindful eating, do you think that we need, like, one needs a coach to be able to do it, or a nutritionist? I know you talked about accountability being really key and ideally community, but do you think we need a coach to start?
I mean, so I will say anytime you're embarking on something new that is foreign, it's always best to have someone like the first thing when I started my business, I turned to my husband and said, I'm getting a business coach. And he's like, what? You just Google how to start a business. And like, I'm already on my third business coach. Like, I will always, actually, I'm re-signing with her today for the third time. Like, it is so important to have that sounding board. And again, someone
Mhm.
to lean into when you're not sure. So if you were to start practicing mindful eating, sure, you can absolutely listen to this podcast and try to practice it for yourself. But guess what? You're probably trying to undo 20, 30, 40, 50. I have a client who even is undoing 60 years of diet culture, right? She's in her like 60s and 70s. And
Wow.
that takes a long time. So she sent me a message. It was so beautiful. I wanted to cry. It was just like, I can't believe you've been done 60 plus years of diet culture. And I'm like, yeah. And guess what? She's been working with me for 8 months already. And we still have a lot of work to do. So
Yes.
of course, I encourage everyone. Like, I have clients who have taken like my mini course who have gotten started. I have people who follow me on Instagram and have sent me beautiful messages and like kind of testimonials, and like, good for them. Like, if I can help transform your life and help you get that like nerdy feeling that I got that day when I was at camp with my salmon wrap, I have done my job. Like, that to me is my golden ticket where I've literally succeeded in life, because
Yeah.
if I can get every single person to understand what that feels like and to do
Yes.
that most of the time, and I want to make
Yes.
sure everyone hears me, not all of the time, most of the time, because we're not perfect. It's not going to happen
Yes.
all the time, right?
Yeah.
But do
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
feel like crap after Thanksgiving every single meal? Like, if you were to
Right.
evaluate your choices and say, I feel bloated, I am always needing to unbutton my pants, I feel like I'm like so exhausted after meals, like, something's got to change. So you can
Mm,
either do it alone, but I guarantee you'll probably send me a DM on Instagram in a few months and be like, okay, I need help. Like, why not do it with the
yes.
support? Why not get
Yes.
to the end result faster and with ease? And that's why, I'm not here to convince anyone. I'm just here to show
Mm,
you. I've made the 12, 16 years of mistakes that you shouldn't make, right? Let me
Yeah.
take that and package it into a much shorter timeline. And I will say, you know, I'm still working on my journey, right? Whether I'm, postpartum or I was pregnant or, there's something in life, I still have to work on it. It's not like,
Yeah.
and especially as a business owner, like, you know, did I have a proper lunch today? No. Like I was back to back with meetings, back to back with things. Like my protein bar was my lunch. Like it wasn't perfect. Like, and I teach my clients eat real food and sit down and focus and da da da. Like I'm driving while eating sometimes. Like that's life, right? But
Yeah.
most of the
Yes.
time I practice my mindful eating practices, and
Yes.
I've what you practice grows stronger. So I've had to
Yeah.
practice them. And I think I was able to be successful because when it got hard, I didn't quit because I had someone in my corner. So I know that was like a convoluted way to say, sure, you can, but you'll
Mm-hmm.
get to the end a lot slower. You might not make it, it'll be harder. So why not invest in your health? And I always tell my clients, it's in a one-time investment. I'll never forget, like one of my clients, Robin, who was in like the beta version of my program, and she lost about 35 pounds. And she was just like, I am so proud that I can practice this for the rest of my life. I don't have to pay for medications for her pain management anymore because she didn't have so much weight putting on her body. She didn't have to go to the doctor all the time. She didn't have to have knee replacement, like all of these things that would have been big expenses. So it's the same
Yeah.
thing as me. Like when I was diagnosed with prediabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, God knows how much money I would have spent on my health.
Yes.
And
Yes.
mindful eating and this investment in a coach
Mm.
is preventative. And
Yeah.
preventative health, I don't know the research off the top of my head, but I'm sure is alarmingly less money is spent there when we actually take preventative measures versus the long-term, cost of
Mm-hmm.
taking metformin for the rest of our life, going on weight loss meds, having bariatric surgery, doing all these things. And I've been there, guys. I've been in
Yes.
that space. And I mean, I've had a patient who was on his third round of bariatric surgery. I turned to my surgeon. I was like, how the hell do you do bariatric? How do you do a Roux-en-Y 3 times? Like, doesn't that tell you that this person needs lifestyle management? They need to learn how to, fuel their body. They're just coming for another quick fix. You cannot get bariatric surgery 3 times and think, oh, third time's a charm, right? This time it's going to work. No. So this is
Yeah.
why our system is broken. And this is
Mm.
why quick fixes fail. If you ask me
Yeah.
about Ozempic and Mounjaro and all of these weight loss meds, which I have a lot of experience with, like I am team, if you want to do it with support. So I have a client tomorrow who's on Mounjaro, and she's still working with me because we're working on the lifestyle management. We're working on her behavior
Mm.
modification, on her mindset. That's how I know
Yes.
when she gets off of it, she will maintain her weight loss. But the people that go on these quick fixes, they are the
Yeah.
ones who will fail. And I say that with
Right.
love because you're
Yes.
not set up for success.
Mm. That's interesting. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. It kind of it ties into actually a listener question. So the listeners, we are all envisionaires, and so we have an envisionaire question, and the question he asked is, as a coach, do you think that most people sabotage their efforts to eat healthy themselves, or are there external factors or other people like family members and so on that tend to sabotage it for them? And either way, how do you deal with that?
So you mean does the coach struggle with the eating
Oh, no,
behaviors
no,
or
no. So, like
client?
in your experience as a coach working with lots of different clients,
Got it.
do you think that it's like when people aren't successful because, is it self-sabotage, do you think, because of the history and the sort of maybe some of the mental health issues around it? Or do you think it's external factors like family members or friends or so on? And how would you deal with that, whether it's
Yeah.
the self sabotage or the external factors?
I mean, that is all in one, really. That is every single one of my client. Everyone has their own story. So whether they have a mother-in-law that, always, every time that they see them, or here, let me give you Chantal, one of my clients, her grandmother, or even Allison. I could literally name so many clients, like their grandmother, doesn't matter what weight they are, right? They're either too fat or they're too skinny. Every time they're going to comment, right? Is the
Mm.
same comment with me. It's like every time someone in my family told me I was either too big, then I lost the weight, then of course I struggled, and then it was like I was too skinny, and then I had to gain weight. So it's like nobody's ever happy, right? So then you also have that aspect when you said self-sabotage. I mean, it's huge, right? There's a lot of people that don't believe that they can do it. I have a client who we're working on just kind of her coping mechanism with alcohol right now. And she knows I feel so much better when I don't drink a lot and I don't eat as much, and I feel better. But there are some times that she does it because she conforms to societal, like where she is, right? Or she's stressed and it's that self-sabotage, and that's what she leans into to suppress or not feel or whatever, it is. So food is a coping mechanism, and that is self-sabotage. I'll never forget. I have one past client. Her name was Liza, and we were on a session, and before we were ending, she was like, okay, I need to go to Trader Joe's to get these like plantain chocolate covered chips. I was like, okay, why? She's like, oh, I'm getting my period, so I'm gonna crave chocolate. And I was like, okay, so you're literally setting yourself up for a craving and failure. And it was so funny. I literally, like, it was like a deer in headlights. She was like, like she was so called out. She's like, what? Like, I swear she probably would have fired me, but she was like, oh my God, Jackie. Like, oh my God. It's just freaking out. It's like, yeah, you are and that's why you need a coach, guys, to call those things out that you don't see. It's your blind spot. And so
Mm.
that's what I do, because when I do my check-ins with my clients and I see and hear their language, and it's
Mm.
always about like, I can't, I didn't, I should have, all of this negative scarcity talk, living in the gap.
Yes. Yeah.
And no wonder why it's this perpetual cycle of fail and start and stop, start and stop, start and stop. Because think about it, guys, it's January, whatever. Like, how are your New Year's resolutions going? And
Mm.
I don't know what the statistic is, but something by like, within 12 or 14 days, people just totally fall off their New Year's resolutions.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting because, again, we expect ourselves to go big, we burn out, and then we say, F it, I'm going to start over. And then we never start over. Or again, the same thing happens. And it happened to me. Like every time I tried a different diet, it was just so short lived. It's also because not only was it unsustainable, but I didn't expect
Mm.
myself to be successful. I didn't expect myself. So when I actually started practicing mindful eating and I approached it with curiosity, and then I was like, wow. And I focused on, I did it. I did it. I did it. Oh, you know what? That was a little bit more. I know, what can I do a little bit better? And I really changed my mindset. So when people talk about self-sabotage and struggling with that kind of stuff, you will have external factors like
Mm.
the parent, the someone commenting on your food, which happens to me all the time. And I'm still working on it. I wish I was like Teflon and I didn't let those comments get to me, but sometimes I do. I'm much better
Mm.
today. But also that internal self-sabotage. And again, that internal up here.
And so I'm hearing that working on the mindset is helpful, kind of like being able to hear it and not let it affect you maybe as
Yeah,
much.
so it's hard because, again, I always teach my clients this is not like, new in rocket science. Like, you can't control other people's actions, but you can control
Mm.
your reactions, right? So, when someone says something or something happens, and again, this is when I teach mindless versus mindful eating and kind of the
Mm.
self-coaching model that your thoughts create your feelings create your actions, and your actions create your results. So
Mhm.
when you let that cue really stem that thought of that negative, like, oh, I deserve this, or oh, I'm so stressed, and like this person did this to me, or like I got this upset me, and blah blah blah, then it cascades. This is like domino effect of, again, that
Yeah.
thought leads to the feeling, leads to the action, leads to the result. So that feeling of, defeat, or feeling of unworthy, or feeling of depressed or sad leads to that action of, well, F it, or you know what, this is going to make eating this will make me feel better. What's the result? You don't reach your weight loss goals. You don't
Yeah.
get further. So when you
Yeah.
change your thought of, this
Yes.
sucks, but this is what I can do, or this happened, I accept this, and this is what I'm going to do about it. So if you want to change your life forever, it all starts between the ears.
Mm. Oh, I love that. That's so good. I mean, honestly, we have more questions, but I think we're going to have to wrap up and move on to the final segment. But just due to time constraints, we're just going to have you back on, or I'm going to ask the listeners just to reach out directly to you. But I do think there was another question asking about what they can start doing today if they want to hit the reset button. And it sounds like listening to this podcast, following you and learning from you with all your advice that you give on your Instagram and your socials, and then also start working on the mindset, that's really really key. So, and then obviously just like taking in all the advice you gave. So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
good. Thanks, Jackie. Right. Well, we're going to
Yeah.
do a quick fire of the Envisionaire questionnaire. Okay. This is the final part of the podcast. We ask guests to look back on their past, present, and future. And so we're just going to do a little quick fire. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay. Looking back towards your past, if there's any advice you can give your 15-year-old self, what would it be and why?
Trust yourself. I
Mm.
wish I would have listened to myself instead of listening to others, and would have looked inwards into what my body was telling me and what was best for me at that time instead of what other people were telling me to do.
Because you always knew the answers. You always have it inside, right?
I did. I did.
Okay, reflecting on the present moment, if you could seek any advice in the world, who would it be? From
Seek
who would it
advice
be?
from someone, or what
Yes,
advice would
yes, yeah. Seek advice from someone, anyone in the world. Who would it be?
probably the Dalai Lama. Like, oh my God, like chill out, like relax, be present, practice, I do practice gratitude, but I've not delved into like the woo-woo so much, but I'm starting to get more into, I went to this conference like I was telling you about earlier, and we did spoon bending, and I was like, I need to bend the spoon with my mind. And it was like
Wow.
the cool. I moved the spoon before we
Did
started
you?
the podcast. So I did
Stop
bend.
it.
I did bend it, but I had to put a little bit extra force. And I'm like, oh, you know what? Like, so my
That's so
energy.
cool. I love
Yeah,
that.
but it's really incredible to see like what people can do. It's like twists and turns, but I do
Wow.
think those that meditate and are really connected to the spiritual side of themselves. I'm not super religious, as I've mentioned probably 20 times. I'm Jewish, but like I do think that really honoring our energy and what we're capable of and practicing that gratitude. And again, it's just the law of attraction. I want to get more into that instead of like the hustle and the grind and the work productivity side of me. Getting more into that kind of like, I guess, the feminism, the
Mm.
yeah, like the masculine versus feminine energy.
Yes, totally. All right, future looking. What's one goal you want to achieve in the next 5 years?
Is this a business goal or is this a life
Oh, it
goal?
can
Or
be anything you want. It's just like something for you to reflect on.
well, I want to hit 1 million, so that's always a big goal. But I think
Yes.
a bigger goal for me would I would love to finally write a book and start a TV show so I could reach as many young girls and just
Oh,
transform as many lives as I can.
beautiful. Oh, I'm so excited
So
for
you can
you.
hold me to
Yay.
it in a few
Yes.
years and be like,
That's,
Jackie, did you do that?
yeah, exactly. We're going to touch base.
I love it.
Thank you so much, Jackie, for being on the podcast. I could talk to you for hours, but thank you so much for sharing so much of your story and generous advice. I want to invite you to tell us, the listeners, where we can connect with you. I already know where to connect with you, but tell the listeners, please, where they can connect with you and about your podcast that's coming up.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited. So the Mindful Nutritionist show will be coming out on February 19th. If it's not out, please send me a DM and be like, Jackie, we're supposed to launch today. So hold me accountable and make sure it's out.
I will.
And hence you can find me on all social platforms at the Mindful Nutritionist, the.mindful.nutritionist on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest. I'm Jackie Kirschen on Facebook if you want to connect there. And I love you guys, send me a DM. I'm very, very open with my community and I love talking and helping you as best as I can. So if you have not DM'd me, I will probably DM you first. So I'm just excited to connect.
Amazing. Thanks, Jackie. Well, I'm sending you lots of love and thank you again for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you hit subscribe and check out this video here.